You are listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report, episode 135.1. Michelle Garmon reacts to the college football playoffs quarterfinals.
You're listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report with your host, Greg Mengels.
Michelle, there is a narrative out there that because the four teams that had byes all lost in the first round, that means that it was the rust was the reason that these four teams won. This week, of course, it was Ohio State, Penn State, Notre Dame, and Texas. Your thoughts on that?
As bogus. And here's why it's bogus.
Completely
It's
bogus.
completely bogus because all of those teams played in conference championship games the week after um the rest of the college football playoff field, except for SMU was in a and Clemson, I guess, were in,
Yeah.
they all played a week out. Like IU, they'd had a lot of rest. I mean, so they had basically almost the same as much rest as like IU did before they went, as IU and Notre Dame did before they played.
Michelle,
So
it used to be much, much more rest in college
yes,
football.
it did.
It used to be from the middle of November till January 1st.
Here's what it is, and this is what they really have to look on. It's not those top four seeds. It's not rust. It's the fact that because when they came up with this playoff, they said that the Power Four conferences, they got an automatic bid, and then of the remaining, or whatever, then the
Yep.
highest ranked would get
Right.
or however. I mean, what they did was they just the highest rank. Well, that's bogus because if this playoff was followed the rankings, the seedings would have been totally different. The matchups would have been totally different.
Yes.
And so
I think
I feel
what it
sorry. I mean,
did,
I feel sorry for Oregon. I mean, I know Ohio State spanked them, but Oregon and Ohio State shouldn't have been playing in the quarterfinals.
I like the way that it's been done. I think it set up some really good matchups on this week, some really compelling ones, some really good games, some very interesting outcomes. So let's start with the first game, which was Tuesday night, and that, of course, was Penn State's 31-14 win over Boise State. It was a lot closer than that, though.
Well, it kind of came back to be a little bit closer than that. I thought Penn State was kind of dominant there for a stretch. I'm not surprised Penn State won. I'll say this now, and I've said it all year. I mean, just because the Big Ten had some teams that were right at 500 or a little bit above, I think it is a great conference, and they play 9 conference games. And I mean, all you have to do is look what's happened in the postseason. But Boise State is good, and I was glad. I mean, Boise State deserved to be there. Penn
Yes.
State, if I was doing it, I would have had Penn State sitting higher than Boise State in the seeding. So
Okay. Then the second game was a crazy one. Texas, of course, missed a kick that no college football kicker should ever miss, much less at Texas, where they can recruit the best in the country to send the game into overtime. But then Ewers was so good, and I thought Texas
well,
probably deserved to
that
win
game
that game.
comes down to one very bad missed targeting call. That was
Absolutely.
textbook targeting. Arizona State probably wins in regulation if that targeting call
There was also a
is
really bad non-call on a pass interference on the offense that would have
so.
changed things. So that, yeah, a couple of really bad calls, but I will never focus on the officials. There's 400 plays in the freaking game. That
Well, the
one
only
call
thing,
did not make the difference.
the only way I do with that is because the officials on the field don't call the targeting. They
Yeah,
do, but they
something is
don't always.
amiss there.
Because it goes to a review booth and everything. That should have never been missed, and it should have never been missed when all over X you've got big time officials that have officiated a lot of college football.
Yeah.
And the NFL
You
saying
don't need to be
that was
an
textbook
official,
targeting.
Michelle. Didn't need to be an official to see that was a missed call.
I know.
You could be a 4-year-old and see that was a missed call. So I have no idea. Something was seriously amiss with that one. But
Yes, something was seriously amiss. That was, I'll tell you what, that was a great game. And you know what? It's really a shame they vote for the Heisman Trophy and all that stuff when they start declaring candidates and everything. I think way too soon because yeah, Giante is pretty special, but so is the Scattaboo. Scattaboo is an
yes,
incredible running back. He impressed the heck out of me in his conference championship game, and he was even more impressive, I thought, in in
yeah,
the
Quinn
game
Ewers
against
too.
Texas.
Quinn Ewers, if he hadn't missed a couple of games, probably would have been in the conversation a little bit more. I have a
Maybe
feeling we
my
might hear
sister
more from
believes
him.
Quentin. See, my niece graduated, from Texas in Austin, and nobody does college graduations better than University of Texas. I can say that firsthand because I went down there for it. But if it was a good thing, it's probably a good thing he pulled that out at the end because he has cost them in some games this year, and also because he has missed some throws and I think injuries have hurt his consistency, but I don't know that he is, and the way their offense kind of goes stagnant, I don't know. I think he may be. I'm not so sure he's not slightly overrated.
Then in the Rose Bowl, Ohio State just completely demolished Oregon. I think that one was kind of easy to see coming.
I'll tell you what, well, while it was to be honest, I believe Ohio State, they really felt, like they should have won that they should have won the first matchup. And
Right.
I think they just came out super fired up. And let's be honest, um, Oregon was missing um, a couple of key players. And when you're playing a team as good as Ohio State and they get off to start like they do, when you lose players through the game, it's really hard to come back. But I give Oregon a lot of credit because those kids never folded.
And then the Sugar Bowl was today. Tuesday was, I have no idea what day of the week it is. Thursday, January 2nd. Notre Dame offense wasn't overly impressive, but there was no doubt they were the better team that entire game.
Oh, we said it earlier in the podcast before postseason. No, nobody was probably playing better in the country than Notre Dame at the end. I mean, they really and you know because they are an independent. The way they set that up, they'll never get a bye, or be one of the top four seeds. But you know what? That's okay. And I like Marcus Freeman. I thought he was a good hire. I like what he's done at Notre Dame. I think he handled this situation with the bombing and the delay of for a week, for a day. I think he handled it great with his young men. I think he's a great leader. And what I am so happy is just like him. I think he's a better man, and I think he's a better person than Brian Kelly. And I love it because he went and he did something that Brian Kelly can never do, and that is beat an SEC team in the college football playoff.
It's the first time in a long time that I've said that guy belongs at Notre Dame, and I hope he stays there forever because
I think he's the
he'd
first.
be
Don't
the
you think he's
perfect
the first?
face of the franchise
Yeah,
of the program.
he's the first Notre Dame guy I think since Lou Holtz.
Yes, that's what I was going to say that, but there might have been someone in between, and I didn't want to say that, but that was my thought. Was since Lou Holtz, um, it really feels like they've got the right guy.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I think that oh, Charlie Weiss. I think he really wanted to be that guy,
Yes, but he wasn't.
and he wasn't. But I think had he been in college football, maybe a little bit more instead of coming from the New England Patriots. And I just say that because I think it's hard to come from the NFL, especially when you've been a coordinator in the NFL, and then come and find the right coordinators to build your staff. I think it's easier to do when you've been in the college ranks. I just think it is easier to get the right pieces on your, and when you're that, and you're not a butthole. Brian Kelly's a butthole. Marcus Freeman is not.
Correct. All right. So now we have Thursday, January 9th, is the Orange Bowl between Penn State and Notre Dame. By the way, Michelle, I love the matchups coordinated with the history of college football as well. Having Oregon and Ohio State and the Rose Bowl was cool. You know,
Yes.
and this one too. It feels like a great old Orange Bowl game. Notre Dame and State. Notre Dame's 13-1. Penn State is 13-2. That's Thursday night at 7:30. Then Friday night, January 10th at 7:30 is Ohio State and Texas in the Cotton Bowl. That also feels like a great Cotton Bowl game. And Michelle, before I get your reaction to what I believe is the best four teams in the country, and the four teams that I picked, so I have not missed a game yet. I am 8 for 8 on my college football playoff predictions,
I think it's going to be Notre Dame and Ohio State in the championship.
and I believe it's going to be Penn State and Ohio State in the national championship.
I don't. I think Notre Dame will win. That Notre Dame's defense is too good. That it's the best, even in missing the number one quarterback. Is there? There's not a better secondary out there.
No, there's not, but
They're
Penn
just
State's defense is awfully good. And Notre Dame's offense is not very good. I think the over under should be set at about 17 and a half for this game.
well, not necessarily. They didn't. Notre Dame's offense just didn't play well tonight, but they have played well at times this year. And
Yeah,
you know,
Penn State's a top 5 defense in the country as well.
it's going to be Notre Dame because I think Penn State's offense is worse than Notre Dame's. There,
I
they have
completely
less.
disagree with that.
They don't have the depth of playmakers that Notre Dame has.
Okay, so we will see. We'll put a lot of points on the line there, Michelle. I say Penn State. You say Notre Dame. The odds
Yes.
makers have Notre Dame a 1.5 favorite, and I think that's a perfect line. But I do believe Penn State's going to win. Then Ohio State -5 against Texas.
Ohio State's going to blow them out.
I just don't think that's going to happen. I think
You don't
that's
think
going to
Ohio
be a
State's going
great
to blow
game.
them out?
Not at
Oh,
all.
I don't. You want to talk about an offense that sputters in the second half? That's Texas. They're terrible in the second half. I mean, they have not. I mean, they lately they're they just can't sustain it. I think Texas is a perfect example sometimes of a team that peaks too early.
They're in the Final Four, Michelle.
I know. Ohio State will win by at least 2 touchdowns
Okay, I believe it'll
because
be a.
Texas is lucky to be in the Final Four.
Well, yes, they are, but I believe it'll be a field goal either way. Um, and by the way, did I mention that I'm 8 for 8 in my college football picks so far?
You did, but
Okay,
Ohio
all right,
State
all right.
by 2 touchdowns
I just
at
wanted
least.
to, I just wanted to point that I do have Ohio State winning, Ohio State and Penn State winning it all. So, if you want to know what's going to happen, that's what's going to happen. All right, Michelle. Do
I got
you
Notre Dame, and I think Notre Dame's going to win it all because I think Notre Dame wants to get back to Ohio State, and I think, you know, the Ryan Day attacking Lou Holtz like he did after they barely beat Notre Dame that one year. I think Notre Dame is going to have a little chip on their shoulder when they go into the national championship.
That would definitely be a fun national championship, but I believe it will be Penn State and Ohio State. We will see any way that it goes. It's going to be a fantastic national championship game. I've watched more college football this year than I've watched probably in the last 20 years combined. A playoff was needed, and I think it's been fantastic. Thank you so much to Michelle. She is so much fun to have on the podcast. Does such a good job. And thank you for listening. Please go right now and like, subscribe, or follow us on SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or YouTube so you don't miss a single segment. And if you wouldn't mind doing us a huge favor, please tell a friend. The Central Indiana Sports Report is a product of ITG Media.
Sissy.